They called me poor. Little did they know, I was the puppet master pulling the strings of their entire empire. Standing at the edge of my cousin Tiffany's lavish engagement party in the heart of downtown, I watched my family celebrate their supposed business brilliance while wearing a simple rental dress that probably cost less than the champagne they were casually spilling. The irony wasn't lost on me. Every crystal chandelier hanging above their heads, every imported flower adorning their tables, every designer outfit they wore with such pride was funded by money that flowed from accounts I controlled. Aunt Vivian's voice cut through the elegant chatter like a knife, her champagne glass raised high as she held court at the VIP table. Business acumen, darling. It's something that runs in the bloodline. These salary workers, they simply don't understand the true value of money. They think small because they are small. Her perfectly manicured fingers gestured dismissively toward the general population, as if discussing a different species entirely. Uncle Richard nodded approvingly, his expensive watch catching the light as he gestured. Exactly right, Vivian. It takes vision, boldness. Average minds simply cannot comprehend the complexities of building wealth. He straightened his silk tie with the satisfaction of a man who believed every word he spoke. Tiffany giggled, her engagement ring sparkling as she pointed in my direction. Absolutely. Like our dear Nadia here, she works retail, which is sweet and all, but running a business empire requires a completely different kind of mind altogether. Her voice carried that particular tone of condescending affection that family members perfect over decades of practice. I maintained my smile, the same practiced expression I'd worn to countless family gatherings over the years. Aunt Vivian is absolutely right. I wouldn't even know where to begin with business strategy. The words rolled off my tongue smoothly, each syllable carefully crafted to reinforce their assumptions about my limitations while hiding the deeper truth underneath. After listening to their casual dismissal of anyone they deemed financially inferior, I excused myself to the restroom, my phone screen illuminated with a complex investment portfolio that would have made their heads spin. Vivian's Vista Resort Group, Richard's Technology Solutions, Tiffany's luxury fashion brand. The total portfolio value read $250 million, all of it flowing through carefully constructed shell companies that masked my identity as their primary investor. My finger traced across the screen as I absorbed the irony of their ignorance. The following evening found me in my modest apartment, standing by the window overlooking the city lights that twinkled like fallen stars. They had no idea that 8 years ago, I had transformed my grandmother's $50 million inheritance into $640 million through calculated investments and strategic business decisions. My total portfolio had grown to $1.3 billion, making me one of the youngest billionaires in the country. More importantly, they had no clue that I was the silent architect behind every success they claimed as their own genius. I pulled up the financial reports on my tablet, watching the numbers dance across the screen in neat columns and charts. Every strategic investment that had saved Vivian's resort chain from bankruptcy 3 years ago, every technology breakthrough that had catapulted Richard's company to industry leadership, every fashion trend that had made Tiffany's brand a household name, all of it traced back to anonymous funding that originated from my carefully managed accounts. The next morning, I sat in my private office, a space my family didn't even know existed, and made the call that would change everything. Diana Chen, my senior asset manager, answered on the second ring with her characteristic efficiency. Diana, I need you to withdraw the entire $250 million from all investments related to my family. Immediately. My voice carried a coldness that surprised even me, years of suppressed frustration finally finding an outlet. Diana's sharp intake of breath was audible through the phone. Nadia, that money is distributed across 17 different joint ventures. A sudden withdrawal of that magnitude will create severe financial crisis, potentially bankruptcies for multiple businesses. I looked out my office window at the towering headquarters of Vivian's Vista Resort Group, its gleaming facade reflecting the morning Sunday. That's their problem to solve. Tell me, Diana, what percentage of their employees earn under $60,000 annually, and how many of my family members actually built their businesses from scratch? Approximately 70 to 80% of their workforce falls into that income bracket. And most of your family inherited their initial capital from previous generations. Diana's response was precise, as always. I smiled grimly. So the truly hard-working people will experience minor setbacks, while the privileged will finally face consequences for their arrogance. Proceed with the withdrawals, Diana. Complete the process by end of business today. The phone calls started at 11:32 that morning. Vivian's first message was left on my voicemail, her tone still dripping with condescension, as she explained how my retail experience might help resolve a minor customer service issue at her resort chain. I deleted the message without returning the call. By 1:47 inches the afternoon, Vivian's second call carried a noticeably different energy. Nadia, Pinnacle Holdings wants to withdraw their entire $47 million investment immediately. This can't be happening. Businesses don't operate this way. Her voice cracked slightly, the first hint of genuine panic breaking through her usual composure. Richard's voice message arrived at 2:23. confusion and desperation bleeding through his typically confident tone. Nadia, what's happening? All my investors are pulling out simultaneously. You work with customers all day. Can you explain this madness to me? Even in crisis, he couldn't resist reducing my expertise to customer service. Tiffany's message followed at 2:45, her voice pitched higher than usual with stress. Nadia, I need your advice. My investors are demanding an immediate withdrawal of $18 million. You deal with difficult customers constantly. Please help me figure this out. The irony of their continued underestimation, even while begging for assistance, wasn't lost on me. At 4:30 that afternoon, my doorbell rang with unusual urgency. Through the peephole, I saw Vivian, Richard, and Tiffany standing in my hallway, their faces pale and drawn with exhaustion. Gone were the confident expressions from the previous evening's festivities. Vivian pushed past me as I opened the door, her usual grace replaced by frantic energy. Nadia, thank God we finally reached you. We've been trying to contact you all day. Her designer suit was wrinkled, her perfect makeup smudged at the edges. Richard's face was flushed red with stress and anger. Someone is systematically destroying our businesses. $250 million has vanished from our accounts. The banks are calling constantly. His hands shook slightly as he spoke, the confident businessman facade crumbling in real time. Tiffany collapsed onto my second-hand couch, tears streaming down her cheeks. We can't make payroll next month. The bank representatives keep calling about loan defaults. Her engagement ring caught the light as she wiped her eyes, a stark reminder of the celebration that now seemed like a lifetime ago. I settled into my worn armchair, maintaining the same calm expression I'd perfected over years of family gatherings. That sounds absolutely terrible. But why do you think your investors have become so demanding all of a sudden? Vivian paced across my small living room like a caged animal. Because they're demanding immediate returns instead of following normal investment timelines. Someone has definitely orchestrated this attack against us. Who have you discussed your business strategies with recently? I asked, keeping my voice neutral and curious. Richard ran his hands through his disheveled hair. Just family at Tiffany's engagement party. We were talking about business strategy, natural talent, the usual topics. His answer came automatically, without any recognition of the significance. I leaned forward slightly, my voice sharpening with purpose. Ah yes, those general observations about who possesses true business instinct and who doesn't. Comments about how poor people can't understand business because they lack access to real capital. Discussions about how salary workers should stay in their designated positions. All three family members froze, their eyes widening as the implications of my words began to sink in. Vivian attempted a weak defense. We were just stating facts, making reasonable observations about economic realities. I stood and walked to my laptop, connecting it to the wall-mounted screen I'd installed for occasions exactly like this one. Absolutely. Completely reasonable observations. The investment dashboard filled the screen, displaying numbers that made their collective gasp audible throughout the room. Investment portfolio overview, $1.3 billion in managed assets. Personal net worth, $640 million. Recent transactions, $250 million liquidated from family business investments. Vivian whispered in disbelief, "What is this?" Richard read each line item aloud, his voice growing weaker with every word. Vivian's Vista Resort Group, Richard's Technology Solutions, Tiffany's luxury fashion brand. These are all our companies. I smiled with satisfaction, meeting Vivian's shocked gaze directly. The shell companies that you assumed were operated by sophisticated anonymous investors, all controlled by me. For the past 5 years, I've been the primary financial architect behind your empire. Tiffany stumbled backward, her face completely drained of color. That's impossible. You've been deceiving us this entire time. My voice hardened with years of accumulated resentment. I wanted to observe how you treated someone you perceived as economically inferior, while I was actually the person creating your success. The results have been thoroughly disappointing. The room fell silent except for the sound of their labored breathing as the full scope of their situation became clear. Vivian was the first to speak, her voice barely above a whisper. So what happens now to our companies, to our employees? That depends entirely on what you've learned from this experience, I replied, my tone businesslike and detached. Richard struggled to find words, his usual confidence completely shattered. We've learned that judging people's capabilities based on their economic status is not just wrong, it can have devastating consequences. Tiffany nodded weakly, her voice small and childlike. And the success we were so proud of wasn't really ours alone. Correct. Your achievements were built on support you never acknowledged and actually despised. I opened a new document on my laptop, projecting the terms I'd prepared onto the wall. I'll consider reinvestment, but under completely different conditions. First, you'll publicly acknowledge that your success came from anonymous investment, not superior genetic business instincts. I watched their faces as each condition registered. Second, you'll issue public apologies for your disparaging comments about poor people across all media platforms. Vivian nodded reluctantly, her pride visibly crumbling with each requirement. Third, you'll completely change how you discuss and treat employees. No more comments about salary workers lacking strategic thinking abilities. I continued methodically through my list, watching them absorb each demand. And finally, complete transparency about your funding sources. No more pretending to be self-made entrepreneurs who impressed sophisticated investors. The final condition hung in the air like a verdict. Richard made a weak protest. That will be incredibly humiliating. We've built our reputations on being successful independent business people. I cut him off with a sharp gesture. Then you'll rebuild your reputations based on honesty about how business success actually works. $200 million in new funding, but as acknowledged family investment, not anonymous backing. All three family members signed the reinvestment agreement, their eyes taking in my modest apartment with completely transformed understanding. The same space they'd always pitied now represented the headquarters of their financial salvation. Vivian approached me with difficulty, her voice heavy with genuine remorse. Nadia, I owe you an apology. Not just for what I said, but for years of treating you like someone to be pitied, when you were actually the person enabling our success. I accepted her words with a nod. Apology accepted. But you need to fundamentally reconsider how you discuss economic success and business capability. As Richard reached the door, he turned back with a question that had obviously been weighing on him. When you said that poor people don't understand business, did you actually believe that? My smile carried years of satisfied vindication. I absolutely believed it. I just disagreed that I was poor. In the months that followed, my family's transformation was remarkable to witness. Public apologies were issued, employee treatment policies were completely revised, and most importantly, their assumptions about economic status correlating with intelligence were thoroughly dismantled. The family businesses recovered stronger and more transparent than before. Over 800 employees kept their jobs, and many received promotions as the new management philosophy took hold. 6 months later, at a family dinner, Vivian stood to make a toast that would have been unimaginable before our confrontation. Our family's success doesn't come from individual genius, but from the contributions of every member, including those we failed to recognize. Our strength comes from supporting each other, not from looking down on others based on economic status. She raised her glass toward me with genuine respect. To Nadia, who taught us that business understanding isn't inherited with wealth, it's about creating value and treating people with dignity. The family raised their glasses in a toast that felt fundamentally different from any celebration they'd held before. They had finally learned to distinguish between inherited privilege and earned success. As I looked around the table at faces that now showed genuine respect instead of condescending pity, I reflected on the journey that had brought us to this moment. They'd called me small, but I'd proven that understanding money has nothing to do with how much you start with and everything to do with how intelligently you use what you have. The greatest revenge wasn't just taking their money away. It was forcing them to confront the reality that their sense of superiority was built on a foundation of ignorance about the very person who'd made their success possible. Now they understood that wealthy people often struggle to grasp that their money doesn't make them smarter than anyone else, it just makes them louder about their opinions. Looking back, I realized that my grandmother's inheritance hadn't just given me financial freedom. It had given me the power to teach my family one of life's most important lessons. True business acumen isn't about the size of your inheritance. It's about the wisdom to recognize value in unexpected places, and the humility to treat everyone with respect, regardless of their economic circumstances. The quiet billionaire had finally spoken, and the echo would reshape our family dynamics forever.